Hello everybody, this is Backblast. Here I am again on Planet Zoo, and it's our Chester Zoo build. You might recognise this area. You might recognise it a bit more if you sort of come down the path and wander around here. There's a snack thing there, but over here we have the Andean condor as it used to be. It's not that anymore. I don't know if it's like birds from the Andes or something like that, but that's this area. That's where we are. Anyway, we're not building here today. This is not our build area. What we're going to do is we're going to fly over this way. We're going to go over the Fountains cafe, sweet shop, which I've found out in the last couple of days is actually going to be demolished. So this beautiful building, which is fairly iconic, it's been there as long as I've been going to the zoo, which is way back in the early 70s probably. I was probably there as a child with parents or grandparents, and I think it's always been there as long as I remember. Well, it's going, unfortunately. I think I'll leave it in the zoo for now and we'll see what happens. I am thinking of doing a legacy zoo, so some buildings like this and the old lions enclosure I might put into this zoo as a kind of, this is how it was at one time, so I can then put the monorail in, which of course these days there is no monorail in the zoo anymore, or well, most of it's gone as I speak at the moment, which is early 2020. So I might put the monorail in, and the old boat ride which runs or used to run along here, and certainly the fountains and things like that, so I could keep those in. What we're doing today though is something new, something different. So what I've done is, you can see I've got a grid lined out so I know approximately where the park is and where it goes. I've got a photograph of the zoo from the air, and these lines are roughly where the pathways are, and this particular square here goes around the penguins, and this is the otters as it is now, and this is the new area which is lemurs down here. This is all lemurs now, and this over here is where what used to be the Jubilee Cafe, and now I believe it's called June's at the moment, June's Cafe, after June Mottershed, obviously, or Mottershed, I'm not sure the exact pronunciation, but I'm dealing with this now. So this is the penguin area. So I have an issue with this, and also I want to make this, so I'll tell you about it as we go through a sped up version of the video, so that you're not bored just watching me prattle on for a bit. So here we go with the sped up bit, and I'll be doing a voiceover on this as well. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, please give me a thumbs up on the video so that more people get to see it. So press that thumbs up button. Thank you very much. So this is now the over talking backblast. This is me talking over the video. What I'm doing now is I'm getting rid of the walls that mark my grid. I've got a photograph of Chester Zoo from the air, which I've put some grid lines onto at 100 meter intervals. So I have a big square grid of what I can and can't, of where everything is. Really, it tells me where everything is in the zoo, and I can look at the grid on the photograph and then equate it to where it is on the grid on the floor. So although I've deleted those brick walls, I don't want them intersecting this building. I know roughly where the walls were and go, because I can extrapolate the line, and we will be able to put the building in pretty much the same spot as it is in real life. So this is the keeper's hut for the penguins. It comprises of several different rooms in there, and I'll talk you through those when I'm putting the doors on. As you can see, it's a funny shape, and it's got this strange roof on it. So the roof is pitched up to one end, except the little extension that sticks out, it pitches back down again there. And I haven't been able to quite make it look exactly as it is in real life, but it isn't far off. So I decided that the roof I'd originally put on was a little bit too steep, so we've gone for a slightly shallower pitch. We just need to make sure we've got that in the right place. There we go. and then just fill the sides in so that it's a proper building rather than having big holes everywhere. So it's a shame, really. This I'm building the penguin enclosure, but the game doesn't have penguins in there. You would think that there are some staples with a zoo that right. I'm making a game about a zoo. What animals do I want? Well, you want elephants, giraffes, rhinoceros, maybe hippos. You want some big cats, maybe jaguars or something like that, and penguins. Everywhere has penguins, don't they? I mean, I can't think of a zoo that I've ever been to that didn't have penguins, and you would have thought it was a staple. So presumably there's a list of things that the developers are working on, and I hope that penguins are near the top. I think a lot of people have sort of said, where are the penguins? If you talk to people who play the game a lot, it's one of the most requested things. All the other big things are there. You've got bears and hippos, rhinos. What else is there? What other popular thing? And I think the two things that are missing are really birds, apart from peacocks and flamingos. I'm talking about smaller birds, so your parrots and things, and penguins. So, yeah, there you go. The other thing is probably an aquarium as well, which is it's a difficult one, really. I can't imagine that they'd make it work in this particular game. And here you can see me just trying to line this up with the grid lines, so that I know it intersects one at a certain point and intersects another. And I'm happy with the placement there, and that's where it's going to stay. That's the final spot. What I'm doing now is I'm putting in a water filter. There is actually, in real life, a water filter in that spot. If you go to the penguin's house and have a look, certainly on Google Maps, and I'll come back to this Google Maps thing in a minute. If you go and look on Google Maps, there is actually a little window you can go and look in there, and it's got a water filter system for the penguins, and it tells you how it all works and how they filter out the waste from the water. And so you can go and look through that little window if you wander along a little path along the side there. The other thing that they have there is a keeper's hut and a fish store. If you look on Google Maps, there's a little sign above the doors telling you what they are. So I've decided that what we're going to have is a keeper's hut, as in real life, and instead of a fish store, I've built a staff restroom. So we've got the water filter, staff restroom, and keeper's hut. So that's pretty good, pretty close to the original. So I was just saying about the things that aren't in the zoo. If I can go back to that for a second. The doors. The doors don't look exactly as they do. The options I've got in game aren't great, so I end up making my own here. So I'll talk about that in a little second. But if you think about the things that are in the zoo and aren't in the zoo, we mentioned the penguins. The other thing is, there's quite often an aquarium section or something like that where you can wander around and see various fish and things like that. In the game, it wouldn't really work so well. It's a kind of a small exhibit for a zoo. You do get big aquariums, in the UK we get things like the Blue Planet Aquarium. There's quite a lot of those around the country, and it's just an aquarium where you can go around, and they have massive tanks, some of which you can walk underneath and through a tunnel and things like that. And they tend to have like sharks. Some of them have turtles, and they're very good for what they are. They all seem to be pretty similar to each other. And it's not really the sort of thing you tend to find in a zoo. You don't tend to get big aquariums. I need to visit a few more zoos around the world to confirm my theory on that. But generally, the zoos tend to be about the bigger animals and don't do aquariums. Aquariums tend to do aquariums, and zoos tend to do other animals, and they don't tend to have an aquarium in them. We have a very good one close to Chester Zoo. If you're aware of Chester and its environs, there's a very good aquarium there, very, very close to Chester. And that's it. You can see I'm fiddling about with the door here, just trying to make a door frame for this. If you look actually on the door, because I've put a door into the scenery and managed to recess it enough, the handle's still sticking out. And you'll see it again with this fish door, which I'm going to put a double door in, and I'll leave it standing slightly proud, and then I'll put the wood on top of it, but I'll do it in a manner that means that you can still see the hinges for the door, and also you can still see the door handle as well. I think it looks pretty good when I've finished it. So I mentioned also Google Maps, and this is a problem that I have with making any part of this zoo. My resources are limited. My resources are limited to anything I can find on Google Maps, anything that I can find on Bing Maps, anything that I have already photographed myself, because I do visit the zoo fairly regularly. Not quite once a year. I'd say more like once every 18 months to 2 years, but it is pretty regular. You know, I'm knocking on a bit, and so it means I've been to the zoo quite a lot. I don't live close enough, and my wife and I have other hobbies and things, of course, but I do try and go at least once every 18 months. We do try and get there fairly regularly. It's a great place to visit. We like seeing the animals. There you go. You can see the door handle and the frame sticking out there. I'm quite pleased with that. And we're going to go on to some lovely guttering now. I have a play about with some eaves and then decide that the options for eaves are a little bit too large. There is a tiny, tiny eave on this building. So yeah, so my options for making things are fairly limited. There are a couple of other sources I use. If people post anything on social media or the internet and I can find it, I will sometimes use it to look at a particular part of the zoo. Those are pretty rare. I don't tend to use photographs very often unless they're the ones I've taken. The other thing that I use are there's a couple of other little resources I've found. So one of them is Chester Council have a website which has planning permission on it. And if you go on there, you can look for Chester Zoo and look at all the planning permissions. And some of them are various demolish orders or ejecting waste sort of things. But occasionally you do find plans for a new area. So the lions are on there, and I got a lot of my lion design plans from the planning permission that Chester put in for it. And also the new giraffe area that is about to be built in the zoo. I'll probably be using that a little bit to have a look at whether I can build from that or not. I don't know whether to include that in the zoo yet. We'll wait and see. I suspect I will eventually build it and put it in. As I mentioned, I'm probably thinking of doing a legacy zoo. So things like the Fountains restaurant and the painted dogs where they are now, I'll probably leave them in as relics of things that have been taken out of the zoo. Like the old giraffe area will probably be in that relic zoo, you know. And I'll probably keep one zoo pretty much up to date. And put all the new things in as they appear in the zoo, and put the older things into the relic. I think that's probably the way to go. I think that's the way to do it. So what about these Google Maps and Bing Maps? What's my issue with them? Well, Google Maps is slightly out of date. So I can look on Google Maps and it will show me some buildings that are there, some that aren't. For example, the new area with the monsoon forest and the various islands and the boat ride and all that, that is not in Google Maps. If you look down on Google Maps, it's there. If you go into the street level, it's not there. It's not been built. Bing Maps. Now then, Bing is... I think I like Bing Maps better. I think there's more detail. I think it's a closer view and I like it better. I think the clarity is a lot better. Unfortunately, it's a lot more out of date than Google Maps. So if there's something like the giraffe house, for example, I can get some brilliant aerial shots from Bing. but you can't get a good street view. And in fact, there's no street view of Chester Zoo at all in Bing Maps. So it's all a little bit. I'm working with old material here. So the best way to find out what something looks like is go to the zoo and have a look myself, which doesn't happen very often. So I tend to be a little bit behind the times. And some people have pointed out on some of the videos, oh, this is not called this anymore, or this doesn't quite look like that anymore. And I appreciate that. Yep, and I will change things when people mention them to me. I'll be all over that. So yeah, please keep letting me know if something's changed or is different, and I'll eventually get round to changing it. But I am aware that some things might not be exactly up to date. So we're coming to the end of the actual building now. There's not an awful lot else to put on it. There's some big words on the side of the building, penguin breeding centre or something like that. And I have a quick think about putting them on, but I don't put the words on at this point. And next we're going to go into the actual building of the enclosure. So I'm going to start off doing that by putting a little bit of a barrier in to give me an idea of where it all goes. So these bits where you can just see the cursor moving and nothing else is happening, that's when I'm looking on Google Maps or something. I've got Google Maps open in a different window. It's just that the video capture that I use isn't set up to capture those bits, which is how I wanted it for this video. So there, you see the cursor's just wandering about like that, nothing's happening. That's because I'm actually on a different screen looking at various photographs or maps, or just trying to get an idea of what things look like. So this is me just blocking in the area so that I know roughly where it's going to go, and then we'll come back to it in a bit to make it look more as it is in real life. I was just trying to get an idea of how far round things came, and how much it curved, and how tall things are, and just get a good idea. So what we do now is we're going to lower the ground around here. So it's obviously lower where the water is inside the exhibit, but the ground actually goes down outside the exhibit as well. It gives the viewers, the general public, an opportunity to come down to eye level with the water and see into the exhibit through the water, which is cool. What you're seeing here is I'm actually measuring out how big the enclosure is. So again, on Google Maps, I can measure how big a building is, or how big an enclosure is, or see a distance between two buildings, and I can then recreate that in the game. So you'll see that the enclosure is bigger than I originally thought it was going to be. So those brown marks on the ground where I've roughly put in where the paths are going to be, you can see I've got it slightly wrong there. So I'm doing the same here. I'm measuring out the width, so I know roughly how far out it comes. So from this end of the building, there's actually a straight wall runs straight down, which I'll put in a moment. And it's a kind of brick wall with a little wooden palisade on top. But what I'm doing now is I'm just readjusting the land that's inside the exhibit to make it look a little bit more as I see it on the Google Maps. And this is a great example. If you look on one of the maps, the whole land bit, or pretty much the whole land bit, it's all green. It's all grassed over. Whereas if you look at later Google Maps, I think on Bing it's all grassed over. If you look on Google Maps, the grassy area is shrunk to a small bit in the middle of the exhibit. So now I think I'm looking at this wall and thinking, right, we need to build a wall down here. Where does this wall go? So apart from not having all the animals in the zoo, so I can't build Komodo dragons properly, even though there's a Komodo dragon house for them. I can't put penguins into the zoo, even though there will be a penguin exhibit in a moment, or within a short while. I still need to build the actual exhibit so that the zoo looks right. So there's going to be 50% of the exhibits are empty, but they will look right. They'll be ready for when the animals come into the game, pretty much. So you can see I've put the little wall in there, and it turns a corner there, and I want to get the land abutted up to these walls. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put the actual enclosure in. We're going to build the enclosure. Now, there's a problem with Planet Zoo in that walls, barriers, which is what I'm building now, and water and paths don't like each other. They absolutely do not like each other. If I build a barrier, if I try and build a barrier or a pathway near water, it won't let you do it. You have to delete the water to build something, and then, you know, sometimes you can't put water in because there's a pathway too close, and it's really absolutely frustratingly awful, really bad. So you'll see during this build I'll be putting the water in, taking it out when I want to change a barrier, taking it out when I want to change a path, putting the water back in, trying to put a barrier in, trying to put a pathway in, and it's absolutely the most frustrating thing about the game. It's just completely bonkers. I'm sure the guys who programmed it, you know, had good reasons for doing it the way they've done it. Maybe it was the easiest way. Maybe there were other issues with doing it a different way. But you can see I'm having to take the water out, put it back in, put the barriers in, take the barriers out, move the land, and it'll be the same when I put the pathways in, which we're about to get to. But unfortunately now there's a big gap in between where the land is and where the exhibit starts, and we need to bring that land all the way up to the barrier fence there. So you see a big gap at the bottom there. We need to fill that in. The gap on the left is where the public stand to look through the windows, the bit that I'm working on now. There'll be a walkway down into this area so that you can see through those windows. And again, you look on Google Maps, you go onto the street level view on Google Maps and look through those windows. Those windows are actually like fake rock. So you can, it's almost like you're looking through a window in some rock. You actually go to the zoo in real life and the rock's gone. It went some time ago and it's now got a chrome surround on it, which, yeah, I'm not as keen on the chrome, but maybe the rockwork leaked or something. I don't know. Maybe it, you know, it got water behind it, or was old and crumbling, or maybe it just needed a facelift. So you can see I'm trying to build the land, but because there's a barrier there, it won't let me build up to the barrier. So I need to delete the barrier to build the land. Now what I can do is put the barrier back in and then delete some of the land, but it won't let me do it all. So what I'm doing is I'm making a kind of mask here. So I know roughly that the barrier is going to go there. So if I can adjust the land now and then put the barrier back in, wow, we're in the gravy. We're in the gravy seats. We're in the hot seats there then, aren't we? There we go. So it's allowing me now to delete it without it disappearing too much from that side. So there you go. Once there's water in, you won't be able to see most of that. That's pretty cool. I can't delete that. There's barrier there. So we get rid of that. Pop the barrier back in. So nice barrier. Please go in without me having to mess about. Of course it doesn't. So I need to just adjust a couple of bits. There we are. Look at that. Beautiful. No gap on that side. Looks beautiful on that side. Winner, winner, barrier. Now, unfortunately, I can't do a mask with a big curved section like this. So what I decided to do was put some telegraph poles in. So I know roughly that the barrier is going to go up against those telegraph poles. So if I can build the land out to the telegraph poles, and I can't build it again because the barrier's there. So, oh no, right, take the barrier back out, put it back in. Right, let's let me do it now. There we go. So if I can adjust the land to those telegraph poles and then put the curved barrier back in. So here we go, curved barrier won't go in. I need to move the land back. So let's try it again in a sec. It won't let me delete that little bit there. So I'll put that back in. I told you it was frustrating. Whiz round there. Now it's in. Look, and look, with the land looks an awful lot more. Well, it looks a lot better than it did. I can't get rid of most of that because it's, again, there's a barrier there. It won't let me adjust the land. But outside it looks a lot better. And if there are any small gaps, I can fill those up with some shrubbery and bits of maybe some mulch or something, just to make it look better. So what I'm doing now is we're putting a door into the exhibit. There is actually a real door in that spot, but it's more like a big double door for a vehicle, or to carry something large in, rather than a single door. And again, we're going to struggle again to put pathways in, because pathways, nightmare. Water, nightmare. Barriers, okay, can be a nightmare. But altogether, water, land, barriers and pathways, ugh. It's a struggle sometimes. So this is a nice little area down here that you can walk down to. You can see there's a little slope here, and there's a slope at the other end, but it gets you down under the water level. You can look through the glass and see the penguins swimming about. That's pretty good. Right, I'm aware that the video's trapping on a bit now. I think we're about 25 minutes in, aren't we, or something? So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this video in a short while, and there'll be another video to finish it all off. So we've built the building, we've put keeper's hut in, we've put the keeper's restroom in, we've built the actual barrier, and we've got the land inside sorted. We've got some path work done, and I'm obviously still working on that right now as you listen to me waffle on. But we are going to come to the end of the video very, very shortly. So I'll just leave you with me trying to get this pathway around the front of the building, and very shortly it's going to be handing back to my real voice, because I've been putting this one on. This is my fake voice, and I'll just do a little bit of an outro to the video to sort of explain what I've done and whatnot. But there'll be another one coming very, very shortly, which will complete the rest of the penguin enclosure. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if there's any suggestions, if you want me to build anything in the zoo, or again, if you've seen something and you think, yeah, that's not quite right, mate, just let me know. I didn't mention Zoopedia. I use that quite a bit as well. I want to thank those guys. There've been some of them subscribed to my videos, which is really, really great, because I know that people who actually go to the zoos a lot and take photos will be looking at this and able to comment. So yeah, forgot to mention you earlier. So Zoopedia guys, thank you. I'll hand you back to my other self. Well, there we go, folks. That's it for today's video. As you can see, we made a good start on that. It's in approximately the right place in the zoo. We've got a few paths associated with it now. There's actually a fence runs here, but the path carries on up this way, I believe, because the otter house is here, and I think it goes up the side. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check my maps. But we've got a keeper's room, which there is in the real zoo. There's actually a water filter room here, and you can go to the window and it tells you all about how the water's filtered for the penguins. This is a fish store in the real zoo. And we've made them look as though they're like a utility door and a proper door getting in, and that's actually a keeper's hut. That's good. We've got access to the enclosure in approximately the right place, to where there's a large gate. I might change this fencing a little on the outside. It doesn't quite match the way the zoo looks on the inside. And also on in the real zoo, this wood paneling comes all the way down to here. There is no concrete here, but in the game the wood isn't waterproof, so I might have to put a skin on this to just make it look as though it's a wooden panelled thing. And also these are chrome, so it's got a chrome outlier on these, so I'm not quite sure what to do with those. So I've got some landscaping to do around here. Certainly all this is landscaped. There's plants and some mulch and some things like that. But the path runs along here. There's a little hut goes in here that sells sweets and things. And then, of course, along the side is the otter place. And we'll make it look wintry in there. We'll put some other bits in there so the penguins, if they actually come in the game, would be happy. But we're getting there. I think another I don't know how long this video's been, 20-30 minutes, I don't know. I think another video of that length would help add the details, and it is the details that makes it work. It's the little things like the guttering and the signage that goes on there, and it's just finishing it all off. You know, it's just making sure that all those bits that are supposed to be there are actually there. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, then please give me that thumbs up, as I said earlier, and I'll be back very soon with another one that follows on from this to complete the penguin enclosure. My name's Backblast. I hope you like the video and the other videos. Leave comments in the comments and things like that. If you've got anything you want me to build, especially Chester Zoo related, then I'll be all over that. So yeah, and I answer all the comments as well. So please feel free. And I do know, you know, there are people who've made comments and I haven't changed things yet. So I know that this isn't called Islands in Danger anymore. I know it's called Dragons in Danger, and I need to go and change it. I just haven't got around to it. But, you know, I'm on it and I'm getting there. I do listen to what you say. I usually do reply to if you leave comments, so please feel free to leave them. My name is Backblast. Hopefully, I'll see you next time.